Hello, everybody, and welcome to CERES webinars. Today we'll be just starting in one moment. Today's session, June the 9th, is Future Farmers and Regenerative Agriculture. We've got a panel of 4 today, and I'm really excited about it. And soon I'll be handing over to our conversation provocateur, Chris Ennis, who's the Business Innovation Director at CERES. Just waiting for everyone to come in, and it's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to start. So welcome to winter webinars. People are all jumping in right now, which is really exciting. So we've got some great guests for you today, just to talk about the current status of their farm and their patch and what's been happening in these times. So it's going to be an interesting conversation today. All right, I would like to firstly acknowledge the land on which we stand at CERES, which is the Wurundjeri people and the elders, past, present and emerging of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I want to think about today how they tended their land and the care that they put into it, and to make sure that it was viable and grew food for the future generations. And we'll talking about how to look after your land well today with farmer practitioners, farmer advocates, and also people who run businesses in terms of purchasing off local farmers as well. So thank you, Wurundjeri people, and maybe people can share in the chat the land on which they stand. That would be great. So I'd love to, so we can pay our respect to the land far and wide, which we represent today. I want to acknowledge that we're currently experiencing a climate and ecological crisis, and that I want to thank all the people that are doing things to make positive impacts in this space. I also want to acknowledge everything else that's been going on in 2020 and the challenging things that we're going through, the economic, social, health problems that we're facing. And thank you for being part of this conversation today and us connecting community together. To have positive conversations about what we can do now and into the future. CERES tries, our vision at CERES is to help people fall in love with the earth again. And we do this through our social enterprises, our education programs, and also providing a place to engage with. This is a beautiful aerial shot of the CERES Honey Lane organic farm. And we have one of the farmer from there today as well as a farmer from Joe's Garden, our 2 organic patches. So you'll find out more about what's growing on this patch today as well. This webinar series is brought to you by the CERES School of Nature and Climate. The CERES School of Nature and Climate encompasses all of our education programs at CERES. And this webinar series is taking branches from our tree, so our learning areas. And today we're talking about regenerative agriculture. Last week we spoke about permaculture. The following week, we'll be talking about new economies and localization. And the week after that, at the end of June, we're going to have a session on climate and natural systems. We've got a great lineup, and we've just scheduled these for community conversations in times of crisis and in times of transformation. So I hope you enjoy this series and come to the next one as well. I'm now going to hand you over to Chris Ennis, who is the manager of Fair Food and founder of CERES Fair Food, our organic box delivery scheme enterprise at CERES, and also the founder of CERES Fair Wood as well. He's our business innovation director, and he's got an amazing expertise in local food systems and lots of connections to local farmers, to which he supports. Chris, with that, please now I'm going to step away and I'm going to hand this session over to Chris Ennis. Thank you again for everyone who is attending today.
Thank you, Lorna. It's great to be sitting in a virtual room full of farmers and familiar faces, and talking especially about this crazy time we are in and the huge impact it's had. I think people will maybe not realise the impact COVID-19's had on farmers, urban and peri-urban. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting talk, and I'd love to introduce our farmers. First, we have Rachel Rubenstein, who is CERES' latest farming sensation. She's a passionate educator and farmer. Rachel is the new urban farmer at Honey Lane, which is the little garden below CERES Grocery. She's pushing the boundaries. I've seen the figures. She is pushing the boundaries of how much food is possible to grow in 300 square metres of garden. And having gained experience at farms around Melbourne, Rachel has come to CERES to design and implement farming education and dreams of a city filled and surrounded by regenerative, sustainable farms. Our next farmer is Katie Johnston. Katie is Vice President of the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance, a farmer-led organisation of farmers, eaters, allies working together for a fairer and more democratic food system that supports small-scale and regenerative farmers. She's also a keen gardener, permaculturalist and traveller, and recently has been working as a coordinator for CERES Global and Adult Learning, as well as CERES Fair Food. Welcome, Katie. Our third farmer is Madelaine Scott. Hi, Madelaine. And Madelaine started her egg business, Madelaine Eggs. Many of you would have eaten Madelaine's eggs when she was 8 years old back in 2002 as part of her home education curriculum. Now, 26-year-old Madelaine manages 3,000 certified organic laying hens on her family farm, Hollyburton Park, which is a whole nother kettle of fish over there. Lots of great things going on in Macedon Ranges. Her chickens and their eggs are NASA certified organic. Welcome, Madelaine. And our last farmer today is the fabulous Emily Connors from CERES Joe's Garden, who many of you might see at her Saturday farm gate, which is quickly becoming the total place to be in Melbourne on a Saturday morning. Em runs Joe's Market Garden on the Mary Creek. And by being a farmer, she can't help but be hopeful. She sees it in the faces of the people who come through Joe's farm gate each Saturday morning. She believes the dominant food system is broken, and buying clean, fresh produce direct is another way, an age-old way that feels natural and good. Welcome, Em. Okay, we are going to launch into this conversation, so get ready to turn your microphones on. So 2 months ago, we were plunged into COVID-19 lockdown. And I want to ask each of you, what happened to your world? We'll start with Rachel, and then we'll go through the same order as we went through the introduction. So Rachel, what happened in Honey Lane when COVID-19 hit?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So COVID-19 was interesting. One that I guess none of us saw coming. So here at Honey Lane, a big part of what we're doing here is a lot of education, a lot of training. We have a lot of groups coming through the space, and obviously as soon as COVID hit, that stopped happening. So I also have been growing everything for the Mary Cafe. So the cafe at CERES, if anyone's been here before, at the top. I've been working with the chef there to grow stuff specifically for her. So that was all very exciting, and we met late February to discuss everything, and then come March, the cafe was closed. So that means that I've had to change what's happening in farm. So I'm really lucky that because I am at CERES, that I have a lot of avenues that I can sell my produce. So I've been working a lot with the grocery here at CERES, also with Fair Food, and also selling some stuff to Emily at Joe's Market Garden, which has been really, really cool. So it's been definitely a lot of changes. We went from having 20 volunteers each week at the farm to having none at all. But slowly I've had 1 or 2 people come and help, which has been really great and super helpful. But it's been definitely a change. And I only came here in late November last year. So it's been a lot of changes throughout that time, but it's definitely, yeah, been an interesting one. I think a lot of opportunities can come out of this.
Katie, you have been in contact with lots of farmers being in the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance. Well, you know, I guess when COVID-19 happened, I can only imagine that the call out to you was huge. The amount of contact and communication that was coming through you guys was immense.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of our members inquiring about support across various for various reasons. But I guess one thing I would say is that because we work with and support generally small scale to medium, but more small scale farmers, actually we have really seen that people who are working in existing solidarity economies, so maybe particularly people who run CSAs, but also people who work with farmers markets and potentially people who have something like Fair Food to sell to on a regular basis, who are supportive of their work within that solidarity economy, are that they have fared better, I think, than a lot of larger producers who were unable to pivot or had to pivot their models faster because they were supplying completely to restaurants or packaging flour in very large bags for not in a hyperlocal way. So yeah, certainly we've been speaking to a lot of members who've needed support in various ways, but we've been really happy to see that the people that we are working for and supporting have been fairly resilient in what is a pretty broken food system otherwise.
So Madelaine, it was a particular time in the egg laying cycle, and at Fair Food we felt it. All of a sudden, eggs normally were sort of down in terms of like production wise, but everyone all of a sudden wanted eggs, and we felt it here. I can only imagine what happened at your place when COVID-19 hit.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, it was a big shock. I went from having, quite a lot of eggs spare to one example was I had a shop who normally sells 15 dozen a day. They got 14 boxes just before some panic buying happened, and they sold all 14 boxes, so 215 dozen eggs in 8 hours. And then they had no eggs for the rest of the week, which was pretty crazy. I also have a little farm gate store, which is up at the gate of the farm, which is run by Honesty. So people come and collect eggs out of an esky, pay in a little money box, and take their eggs. And I was getting an average of 5 to 10 people popping in, maybe sell 5 dozen, maybe 10 dozen a day on a really good day. All of a sudden I was selling 35, 45 dozen, like off the side of the road, which within 2 or 3 days I had no eggs left. And I still had every shop, every CERES box system, everyone calling, being like, can I triple my order? Can I quadruple my order? And me being like, I'm sorry, we're going into winter. There'll be, less than your standard order next week, which is pretty fun. I had a few, like I had the CERES Cafe, they closed, same as Rachel, which wasn't a problem because I could sell the eggs elsewhere. But yeah, that was it's been crazy, the amount of people who need food. And I think it's not just people are changing the way they eat. I just think people who normally eat out once or twice a day, like get their food from a bakery or a restaurant, those people were now eating at home 100% of the week. So they just needed eggs part of their diet. And there was a huge swarm of people to all shops and markets. I've had a few of my farmers, actually all the farmers markets I attend close, but that wasn't a problem either. I just missed getting my own produce from there. Yeah.
So have we got M on the line?
Em's dropped out, Chris. I'm just getting her back online. So continue the convo.
Okay, all right. So the next 2 months followed. We at Fair Food, it was like a tsunami, you know, of that, and the same as your eggs, Madeleine, that all of a sudden everyone was like the population tripled and everyone was eating, you know, eating local food. This is a question to all of you, and, you know, to Katie, about how you helped and how you got yourself through, and what it was and who it was that got you through COVID-19. I've got M, great. Okay, so Rachel, how did you, how have you managed? What have you done? What have you changed to get yourself through this time?
I think the biggest thing for me was understanding that when all this panic buying started, I was kind of like, okay, how can I grow the most amount of food possible in the shortest amount of time? Because as everyone can probably feel this morning, we are definitely in winter, and winter really means that everything is slowing down. Everything slows down. So we're not pumping things out of the ground anymore. So for me, that meant planting some quick and easy crops that could feed more people, like the most people as possible. So radishes, like Asian greens, some herbs. So I think for me, because I'm on quite a small scale, I was just really trying to pump out as much as possible, as quick as possible. And now that winter's come, I've put in cover crops. So we're trying to heal the soil a bit. Maybe we'll talk about regen ag a bit later. But yeah, I think it was just pump out as fast as possible for me.
And Katie, what did the Australian Food Sovereignty, what did you guys do? How did you change the way that you know?
So we actually thought that this was a really good time to be putting ourselves forward, and on top of all the regular sort of like government submissions, legislative work-based work that we do, coming forward and saying this is, everyone is now recognising the importance of a strong, resilient food system. How are we going to, I guess, spread that message even further, invite people into these discussions about solidarity economies, and try to get people to remember. So obviously 2020 has been a pretty crap year so far. I mean, there are areas, I'm actually on Ngunnawal country right now visiting my parents in Canberra, and I've just been down the south coast, and there are communities down there that haven't had visitors since November. So they've been through the fires, and now they've had COVID, and that a lot of those businesses and farms that supply that region are dependent on tourism and people coming to visit and put money into those local economies. So I guess our biggest agenda item as AFSA is to have these discussions, these really important and strong discussions now, and get people thinking so that they can remember, because with everything that's happening, it seems more and more, people probably through no fault of their own, we have limited attention spans in a way, but we're also being bombarded with natural disasters and really important social stuff that's going on right now. And so how can we instill in people this idea that we have to continue thinking about these things? So as AFSA, we have started the Solidarity Economy sessions online. So we've run 2 of them so far. First one was with some of our, was based around CSA, conversation around community supported agriculture, for anyone that's not aware of that term, which is essentially where people buy in to shares of what a farm is offering, be it one thing like or many things, and they provide that farmer with a season's worth or a year's worth of upfront cash so that they can buy things, support themselves, and then provide for those people later. And so we did a CSA session, and now we've done one with Open Food Network about creating eaters to growers. And next week, I think we're working with Friends of the Earth on about co-op food models. And so, yeah, we've had a huge response to those because there are clearly so many people interested. Even now, a couple of months after what was really the hectic time around food, we found that people still are really wanting to understand how they can be part of that system, even if they're not farm-based.
Yeah, yeah. So, Madelaine, I've heard a story about a grain farmer who milled their own flour, so inundated by, customers and people panic buying that they took their website down, they closed they built a new gate on their farm to stop people. It was like they felt like they were being, they were being invaded even. How did you get through this overwhelming demand, especially on the declining stocks? And where are you now?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it was pretty full on at the beginning because I really felt for everyone. I had families coming out, mothers being like, there's no eggs. And in the supermarkets I've been to, 8 this morning, I need to feed my kids. And me being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I actually don't have any eggs. I'm waiting for the chickens in the paddock to lay the eggs so I can package them and put some in the farm gate store and the rest need to go to the shops because they're desperate too. So that was quite hard on my heart. And yeah, I had so many people emailing. I had people wanting jobs too. I was getting, 3 or 4 emails a day from people saying, I've lost my job, I need a job. That was full on. It's quieted down a bit. I'm still getting at least 30 emails a day from people asking questions or wanting food, or even people, which I love this, wanting to start their own producing eggs in their own backyard. So where can they get chickens and what advice do they need to produce their own food, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's been such a crazy time. I had no preparation for this in any way. Yeah.
It's unprecedented. It's just, who expected this? So welcome, M. Connors. Great to see you, Joe's garden there in the background. So firstly, we're talking about what happened when COVID hit, and where are you at now? And what got you through from there to here? We can't hear you.
I can't hear him.
No. Oh no.
And you're muted.
Now you're off mute. Okay, Em. Maybe we'll leave Ben. Maybe you can help Em unmute yourself, and we'll move on. I'm keen to understand why do you think, why was this, this rush to, to local food, to especially, this all of a sudden, out of nowhere, people suddenly finding themselves in a crisis. Why did they turn to farmers, farmers like yourselves? And what do you think, what do you think underpins this sort of, like, I don't know what it is, in a crisis, this yearning to hold on to something like, I need eggs, I need, local healthy produce. What do you think was going on there?
Well, I can answer it a bit. I think it was partly people's daily food. If they worked and they ate from cafes or restaurants, was now closed, so they had to feed themselves from home. But when it comes down to survival, the only thing we actually really need is food and a few other facilities. But it comes down to food. So people who, had all this time on their hands need to start producing food, or finding food which was local, closer to home, which wasn't exported or coming from the country, another country. I don't know about you, but my post, anything that came from overseas still hasn't arrived. And yeah, like it kind of like showed us that we need to be either state sufficient or country sufficient, and we can't rely on anything else, because if it happens again, or comes back like worse, or it does have a major second wave, we need to be more prepared. And so it comes down to food. Enough from me.
Okay, Em, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, everyone.
So tell us, Em, about your experience. What happened when COVID hit down at Joe's Garden, and what and who and how did you get through to today?
Holy crap. It's been such an intense time. We were just coming out of the bushfires and, you know, there was a point during the bushfires where I actually closed down the farm gate because I I was worried about my own health, the workers' health, and the farm gate attendees' health. So I actually shut that down. We were wearing masks then, you know, and then, you know, we sort of slowly came out of that, and gosh, it was just such a huge interest in local food, and we couldn't sell enough. Like, we were just, I ended up having to expand the farm gate range. So we were not only selling out of all the crops that we had in the ground, but we were actually having to expand our, you know, what we could provide for our local community. People did not want to go into supermarkets, so they were here in the open air wanting fresh produce. They wanted to buy so we expanded and started selling eggs. We started selling a few other things as well, some honey. I bought from local farmers, including Rachel from Honey Lane. So would you believe we couldn't grow enough loose leaf greens? Also, what we noticed was we started selling veggie boxes, and there was a huge spike, like about 100 to 120 a week veggie boxes that we were selling on top of our usual farm gate sales. So that was like doubling what we usually do here at the farm gate. So what we also had to do is expand, you know, increase our hours. So my own hours, I had a couple of casual employees that I got on, so there was more work. The other thing is there was an increase in locals that they might live around the corner from the farm. So where we are is in Coburg, and there's this beautiful public path that wraps around the farm, and we had more people walking past the farm, and they'd discover us because they weren't working on those days. They unfortunately lost their jobs, so they were discovering us, discovering this gem that you know, is so beautiful and to shop at. So not only did we have an increase in the amount of people shopping with us, but we also had the increased range. I had a lot of questions on how to grow things. So, you know, even as simple as a parsley plant. So they were like, how do I grow it? And I'm like, well, this is how you grow parsley. You know, there was an increase in need for connection of, you know, just a social connection. So we were handing out, like occasionally we'd be handing out seedlings to people as a show of just, you know, put a smile on someone's face during a really hard time. So we noticed that there was that need, as we're not just we're not just a shop front. There was a need for like a real connection with someone. And so, yeah, we were trying lots of different ways to do that, whether it was just, you know, and the other thing that happened was there was long lines, huge queues to get our produce, but to stand in a farm, it's a different experience than standing in a supermarket queue. So we had a lot of people in, like, actually, you know, sort of meditating in the queue during this really, really hard time. So that's what we've seen. We've also seen an increase in deliveries. So we started doing some deliveries to local people, and yeah, an increased need in that as well. It's really, but I don't know about other farmers, but it's very energy consuming to change your systems. So we're feeling a little bit, even though it's the low season now, we're feeling a bit sort of discombobulated and like, you know, needing a holiday probably, but again, we can't kind of take our hands too much off the reins because things might change again. So we're all feeling a little you know, like this conversation's a really important one to have, even just amongst us farmers, to sort of to share the load and share the emotional load a little bit. Yeah, so that's where we're sort of at. Chris, sort of, you know, is there anything that I've missed out on?
No, I think that's it. We're going to open up to some Q&A questions from people watching, and people really want to get into some regen ag questions.
Chris, we've got the first person, Sophia Hodley. She's from New Zealand. We've got we're cross-continental here today. So Sophia, I'm going to find you and put you live so you could rephrase your question. So get ready to be on the mic. So
Kia ora, Sophia.
From your homeland, Chris.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just allowing Sophia to talk now. Just accept that, Sophia, and you'll be put on.
Hey guys, kia ora. It's actually Steve. I just came in halfway through.
Sorry, Steve's my partner. It is Sophia as well.
Okay, hello, welcome.
Hi guys. Yeah, we're backyard gardeners and we're just trying to scale up. So just wondering if there's any support for backyard gardeners over there that support people who want to scale up their production, government-wise, council-wise.
Katie, do you want to answer that?
I think personally this is probably the biggest, for me, the biggest issue facing breeding a new generation of future farmers. So they're really at the moment, you know, you can go and sort of intern, you can go and volunteer, you can do a range of things that allow you access to growing food, to social connection and all of that good stuff. But to step out so if you want to talk, let's say you're a gardener and you want to scale up off your property, land access becomes an issue. Also, we've had discussions at CERES recently around the fact that if you've already established a life in the city, that's a really hard transition to make. So you are probably already making an income, you might have children, and there currently really is not much support. There is a bit of government support for, I guess, like, you know, kids who might grow up on a farm in rural areas and who might be or have an existing agribusiness of some kind. There's sort of small to medium sized grants to help people with existing businesses, but to actually start your own small scale farming operation in whatever context you want to do it, I think is one of the biggest things that we're lacking. So I think I saw a question about it come up as well, but our government's quite focused on exporting. We export 70% of our agricultural products. So, you know, that's a big deal. And I guess one of the reasons for that lack of support in my mind and my experience is that, you know, lobbyists for large scale farmers are in the ear of the government all the time. So in Victoria, we had some we had success in I think it was 2018, the Victorian government, state government, created the Victorian Artisanal Ag program. And that was really as a response to AFSA and other allied organisations getting together and saying there's not much support for small scale farmers and small scale food producers. And honestly, the feedback from the government we had was that they just didn't know. They thought that small scale farmers were represented, and, you know, why didn't, you know, someone tell us earlier? And probably they thought that they were represented by the Victorian Farmers Federation, which a lot of the quite small scale farmers and, say, peri-urban market gardeners, urban agriculturalists certainly are not represented by the VFF. They're a different beast. So yeah, we're starting to have conversations at AFSA, at CERES, and in our networks about, you know, how can we fill this gap? What can funding look like for people who want to transition, say, from your garden to a small scale farming operation? Because I think, honestly, it's where our energy has to go.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
So we've got Anna, who's got a follow-up question to that, Katie, and perhaps you could also, you know, throw in, you know, maybe some comments about the Victorian country market initiative that the state government has come up with to support small farmers. Anu, are you there? Anna, are you there?
Hi, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Pretty much the question seemed to be answered. I was hoping that to see if there was any sort of change in the perspective or the priorities of state government in supporting more local food systems rather than, because as we know, Australia altogether is exporting mostly. So I just wanted to know if there's a change of heart, basically. Or maybe it's too early to say, I don't know, but maybe they are more inclined to listen to designing or supporting local food systems.
I'm going to answer that.
Yep.
I think there definitely is. I actually know some people within the Department of Ag who I've been speaking to recently who, you know, they're always looking to do the best. So it's not really that the outcomes that we currently have from the governing bodies, you know, to do with agriculture in this country have any ill intent. It's generally just that farmers are so busy. You know, you look at Mads, like she's on her farm all day. Any of the farmers here, any of the farmers in Australia, really. You know that they're already trying to do so many things, and it's only a few of them that get to turn up to the table and have the conversation about their needs. So often what happens is you've got farmers doing their day jobs, and you've got politicians at every level of government sort of making decisions on their behalf. So we sort of act as we advocate for those people so that we can go to politicians, and our committee is made up mostly of farmers, and say to them, actually, what you're presuming that, you know, the farmers in this region need is not necessarily the case. And, you know, and advocate for those programs. It is too early, I think, to see any significant change. But I would argue that when we band together and go to politicians and make our voices heard, that things do change. And as Chris was alluding to, the government did, as a response to COVID, the Victorian government come up with an online platform recently called the Victorian Country Market. And basically, Open Food Network has been established for a long time. They are a resource. They're essentially a similar resource that exists, but in consultation with the community. And so I guess what happened is the Victorian government were trying to sort of do the right thing and say, oh, here, quick, let's pivot to online. We'll speak to all of these producers and we'll get the food out. But the problem with that is that it's not sustainable. So they'll throw a bunch of money at it for a short period of time while we're all thinking about COVID, and then we are not sure how long it will take. But, you know, ultimately, as with a lot of other programs, it will be short-lived. And so there's a mixed response to it at the moment. I know, none of us in the local food and regenerative ag space were very happy about it. But when we did put our voices to the people involved in creating it, you know, you could sense that they were apologetic for not consulting with it, but with anyone in this space, and certainly Open Food Network. But the thing is, that's their general MO, I would say, is that they don't think to really consult first. They just think to sort of throw some money, do something, and then, you know, things tend to die out. So I don't know if you have any further comments on that, Chris, because you've been more involved in.
I've got a question, you know, for you as a small grower, and I think there's quite a few small growers listening today, or people who want to be small growers. You have been successful in, you know, cobbling together a number of grants from different sources. Maybe you could share your experience of getting, you know, a small urban farm, 2.5 acres, funded for the various things you do. And, you know, it's a real patchwork of funding that you've been able to pull together from lots of different sources.
Yeah, I think what was really important in my journey as a farmer is that time to sort of trial and have space to create and be, you know, creative in this process, and also to listen to the community, and to meet like a lot of the people that care about the land, including the Indigenous people. So that was really core in where it is now, I believe. And so what's happened now is that we've been able to, so we, you know, there was that period of time where I was learning from a previous sort of cultivator or farmer of the land, Vince Fittipaldi, who's Joe Garrida's cousin, who used to run the farm from 1945. So he taught me a few things, and then I got my eye in when it came to growing a crop or some crops to you know, to pay my wage, really. I was given the opportunity here to to, like, I, you know, there was a 1 day a week where we had some corporate, so we have a corporate volunteering program at CERES. So where some people who are feeling probably a bit guilty in their line of work, wanting to sort of come in and connect with a community organisation, and they give back. So that's their way of giving back, and they volunteer a day here and there, 1 day of their time a year or 2 days a year. And they come to CERES, and I'd, you know, as a facilitator, I'd be paid 1 day a fortnight to begin with, and the rest of the time I needed to make my wage off what I grew. So it made me very hungry to figure out how to do it. So that would be where I would start, is like, wow, how do we create a space where people can trial some things and bring in their own creativity? And then from there, I sort of looked at it, and, you know, in consultation with Chris and a few other people, I was sick of sort of dropping my hoe or tool and walking up to a local that wanted a bunch of silver beet, you know, just one bunch of silver beet, from the farm, direct from the farm. So I was sick of doing that like 20 times a day. So instead I started the farm gate, and so we doubled our money, you know, just like that. So and then from there, I'm very much into creating interesting ways of connecting people, or curating someone's experience and connection to land and country. And one of the ways that I've done that is through a program you've probably heard about, which is called weed dating. So people pay money to speed date. It might be a friend, it might be a lover, it might just be a good day out. And people want to connect to the land, they do. And just to create a space where it's easy, it's accessible, and fun. So that's been one really successful way of doing it. So there's that, there's the corporate volunteering, we've got the farm gate, we sell coffee as well. So there's, we've got a little coffee cart that wheels out every Saturday. We've got the CSA boxes. What else have we got? We've got music on a Saturday too, usually. Yeah, so that seems to have been really successful. We've got an education little program that comes in and teaches children about, you know, growing or and the Merry Creek. So yeah, that's been really successful. We are very lucky to be in on a public path. So that's what a lot of people might not have. And how do we sort of pull people towards those farms that are just off those public paths? That's my big question. I just want to, can I talk a little bit more about a project that I'm a part of in obtaining land down further up?
I'm really conscious that we've got 4 people, and okay, we've got to, you know, share it around a bit.
That's okay.
But I want to ask Rachel, who's also worked at Mossy Willow Farm down on the peninsula and had experience with other farms, of like, what have been the ways that, you know, people have, you know, you've worked with, have leveraged themselves onto a piece of land and pulled together the funding and the money so that they can become, you know, small-scale regenerative farmers?
So I think that Mossy Willow, where I used to farm, which is on the Mornington Peninsula, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. That was a really, really amazing project, and very a lucky project, I would think, as well, where the farmers were able to create partnerships with owners of the land. And I think that some of the work that I've been doing in the past year or so has been looking at how can we create more models like this? How can we link up young farmers with, or farmers, any farmer with land? There is so much land that is being underutilized all over Victoria. So there's large areas of green wedges which can't be built up for urban population. So there's a lot of land and there's a lot of opportunities there. We just need to figure out the best way to make these things happen. So I do think that there's a huge gap in the market at the moment. There's a gap between wanting to be a farmer and being able to access land. Most of us cannot afford to buy a piece of land to farm on, which makes it incredibly difficult to grow food. So finding that connection, I think, is really important. And yeah, I think if anyone's out there willing to put in energy towards building building a process to gain access to land, I think that would be amazing. Yeah.
Madelaine, you've had experience of a different kind of fundraising in terms of, like, building your business through crowdfunding. Do you want to, share a little bit about your experience of doing something, that came off in a very wildly successful way?
Sure did. Thanks, Chris. I'm just going to go back to, because I started when I was 8 years old, and I started with just 20 chickens. And it was my job to collect those eggs and package those eggs and then sell them to my grandparents and neighbours. And that little bit, 20 chickens, a few dozen eggs a week, was what my whole business has grown off. So now I've got the 3,000 chickens producing a lot of eggs. But yeah, I started with 20. So just start is my advice to anyone who wants to grow food. And then with the crowdfunding project, so when I was 19, I hit a bit of a point where I had 900 hens and I was cleaning and packing eggs for 3 to 4 hours a day, which is a long time to be sitting there just like rubbing an egg, weighing it, putting it in an egg carton. And I wanted to produce more food, but I didn't know how because I didn't have any more of my own time. Like, I needed to do stuff. So I went to crowdfunding, and there's an egg cleaning grading machine, which is worth 60,000. And I thought if I could get this machine, I could have as many chickens as I wanted. I'm still only currently using the machine 2 half days a week, so I can still grow heaps, which is great. So I went to crowdfunding. I made a little video with some mates about myself. I wrote a blurb and I put it online, and I said, this is me, this is what I do, help. And that was pretty scary, but it works. So 60 days later, I had raised $68,000, which was enough for the machine. And that was all bought by people who buy my eggs, who saw me at farmers markets, grandparents, anyone who thought that my dream was worth funding got involved. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So the one thing with crowdfunding though, you've got to show people that you can do it first. So you can't just, I feel like you can't just be like, I want to grow veggies, or I want to grow a market garden, or I want to start a poultry farm. Help me. You've got to prove that you can do it too. So, if you want to produce eggs, get 20 chickens, learn how to look after them, how to care for them, how to package the eggs the way you want, and then see if people like the taste of your product. And once you know it's a good product and it's what you want to do, then you can crowdfund, and people will back you.
Okay, we've got a question next from Nick, who's going to ask about ramping up food production in urban areas.
I was wondering if I might redirect my question on to Regenerative. Sorry about that. So, given the interest and maybe, positively we might see accelerated interest in local food production systems and regenerative agriculture, one of the questions that has emerged is how do we put some assurance in place for people, consumers buying from regenerative farms, that the farm systems, be it urban, peri-urban or larger, are indeed working consistent to regenerative agricultural principles. You know, obviously there's organic certification, but I'm sort of wondering, you know, if we do encourage people to support regenerative farm systems, what can be put in place possibly to ensure that it doesn't get co-opted by, I guess, big agribusiness in terms of the name?
Who wants to jump in?
I can.
Okay.
Should I say something? Hi, Nick. I think actually, and someone else jump in if they know for certain, but I'm pretty sure Charles Massey is part of a group that is creating a regenerative certification. And I actually think that's amazing because that opens it up to even conventional farmers. So basically it's saying you just need to leave the farm better than the year before. And, you know, obviously my heart's in organics and we should be just like trying to convert things very quickly into organics, but it does open it up to a lot more people. So yeah, does anyone else want to jump? Rachel, do you know about the certification? Yeah.
Yeah, I know a bit about it. I think that, yeah, what I love about it is the same as what you love, Em, is that you're just trying to get better yourself. I think it becomes really difficult when you to convert to certified organic. I think it's a 3-year process and it costs a lot of money. But to convert to regenerative just to make it better than the year before, I think is a way easier target for those wanting to practice better. What else? Yes, that's all I can think of right now. I had something else. Come back to me.
Okay. I'll just jump in there as well. I think, there has been, on the one hand, certification schemes give consumers a really clear idea of what to purchase, and that is awesome, and it's especially good for people who maybe aren't, who understand a bit about something like organic and that's what they want. It does, as Rachel said, possibly pose restrictions around cost for some farmers. So I feel like there's the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance happening out of a group out of, is it Southern Cross University in Lismore? So I feel like there's education happening now around Regen Ag, and from that potentially new certification schemes will come. There's also, Chris hosted I think at the beginning of the year or last year, Dr. Bronner's talk. So there's companies who are really wanting to endorse regeneratively grown crops for use in their products. And I know that David Bronner, in conjunction with a group of other people and people leading the way in soil science and other areas of land health are working towards that, but it's in the works. And as you said, Nick, I think it will be interesting to see whether that it can maintain a level of credibility and not get greenwashed. So it's definitely being spoken about, and I think the results will remain to be seen. Hopefully they'll be amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a question from the Port Phillip Eco Centre. I'm not sure who it is, but it's on combining work and farming at the same time, which, you know, you can't start from scratch. You can't start with nothing, and sometimes you've got to do both. And still, you know, I can't think of many farms where someone isn't doing work or farm to keep the farm going. Have we got Port Phillip Eco Centre on the line?
Hi there, it's Bailey.
Hi,
I didn't realise I was signed into my works account. But yeah, I'm just really interested in hearing some opinions from the panelists. I'd love to eventually buy some land and actually grow my own fruit and veggies and have my own chickens, but I can't really see that I can do that without still working full time. And I'm just interested to hear some ideas on how I can do that and all at the same time, and successfully be able to, just produce all of my own stuff and somehow work.
Maybe I'll have a answer that one. That's something that I think about a lot, because that's kind of my big dream, is to be able to do that. But obviously an income needs to come from that at the same time. I think that that diversification is a really important thing when you're doing that. So if you're going to buy land, that whenever I think about, if I want to start my own farm, having like an Airbnb or having like a bed and breakfast, having kind of a way to get money from the land other than growing, because it does take a lot of time and energy to be able to grow for a profit, and to obviously pay back a mortgage and things like that. So I would, that's in my big picture as well. How do I make that happen? And I guess I listen to a lot of podcasts of other farmers and what they're doing and how they are kind of diversifying their farms to get the most out of the land and be able to live in a way that they want to live.
Madelaine, has there been on your farm, over the years, off-farm income coming in to support what's going on the farm?
Yes and no. So my partner, he works off the farm, which is great to bring another income in. But before he did that, our goal has always been to be self-sufficient. So that just cuts down our living costs majorly. So we have goats, we produce all our own milk, we make all our own cheeses, soft and hard. We've always grown all our own veggies. We would like to expand our own veggie patch big enough to supply more, which is great through our little farm gate stall, because that's run off honesty. We can just, if I'm picking carrots for my family, I'll just pick a couple extra bunches and put them out the front and sell them that way. So that's one of the projects that's come out of the coronavirus, is us producing more veggies, more fruit and veggies. But we've always fed our own family first, and then what we have extra, we make money on that. And that was what covers all those other costs that you need for living. I'm kind of privileged in the fact that I use my parents' farm, which has been a great help. But there's like someone said before, I can't remember who, there's lots of land which isn't getting used everywhere. And if it's too much of a big jump to go from city life to country life, you can start in your backyard. There's a lot of people who can make quite a bit of money out of your backyard. My veggie garden's, it's only like 6 meters by 6 meters, and it feeds almost 12 people most of the year. So,
can I add something?
Go on.
So the way I would start, if you want to do a mix, is grow things that don't need to be picked immediately and don't need to be tended to immediately, like beetroots, leeks, carrots, garlic. You can kind of put those in and leave them and store them, like they're basically stored in the ground. So the biggest thing here at the farm is like, particularly during summer, I might not roster myself on a Sunday, but I'm like, I have to come down here and water it, or I have to come down here and pick something before it shoots to seed, like coriander or something. So I would go for like a winter crop, or broad beans as your first thing, and do it. Just give it a go. You might fail, but you've enriched the soil. So I would just keep going and we need everyone. So good luck.
So we've got a question from Adam, who has been asking lots of questions on the Q&A. So Adam, pick your best and go for it.
Okay, hi. So from what I understand, there's been some resistance to regenerative farming from farmers that think, this is just a bit of a fad, and it's this sort of hippie thing that's not going to work, or that is a way to sell us you know, new organic fertilizers or something like that. I'm just wondering, do you have any ideas as to how we can educate these particular farmers that are, you know, sort of so opposed to it? And I guess a sort of another question as part of that as well, is regenerative farming more expensive than types of farming that people might already be doing?
Okay, who wants to jump in? Katie.
That just reminded me of a story that I was speaking to a farmer in the just south of Canberra, around the Micolago area a few years ago, and he does regenerative cattle grazing, holistic management. His parents have a biodynamic vegetable farm, and he said that when he basically never told any of the farmers in his region that he about any of those certifications. He didn't talk really about holistic management. And when he would go to the pub, those sort of older farmers that did know, long-time farmers, would sort of joke about him going to the bathroom to smoke a joint. And, you know, like really, you know, he was the hippie of that area. And by my standards, he's very conservative, this kid. He's amazing. And I just thought it was so funny that he basically, he also was finding that he would sometimes get a lower price for his cattle if he said that they were organically or like holistically managed, because of drenching practices and stuff like that. So he often, had to deal with that in a different way than those more conservative and conventional farmers. So there's stuff like that going on all around the country. I've also even had more sort of conservative and conventional farmers. One of them I did my PDC with, and he got a funded government place to do that. And I guess I just found that the whole time it was more based in ideology than anything to do with the practice of regenerative agriculture itself. So it was more that, like, it was more a sort of territorial, we've been doing this for a long time, it is this way. And the other interesting thing to note is that I've also had a farmer in Inverleigh in Victoria, who I'm friends with, tell me that he's an old school BD farmer. He's been doing it for 20, 30 plus years. And he teaches BD as well, and Regen Ag. And he said, I said to him, oh, you know, who do you get in these workshops that you're doing? You know, is it all the young farmers? And he said, actually, the majority of the people coming to do our BD and Regen Ag workshops are older farmers, because they've actually seen what's happened to the land over the course of 40 or 50 years that they've been farming, between 30 and 60 years. They've seen the destruction that potentially conventional practices have caused, and typically their sons are the ones who are wanting to stay with those traditional practices, because that's where the money is. So for me, I actually think it's more about business as usual, maintaining the status quo, maintaining the income that is potentially more currently, but in the future definitely will not be. And I think in relation to the cost question, I can't really answer that myself because I'm not a farmer, so maybe others can speak to this, but in my experience with farmers who are doing Regen Ag, I think in the long term, definitely we're not currently paying for any of the environmental or the social costs of farming conventionally. And so when we take those into account, definitely Regen Ag will be more valuable and cheaper than farming conventionally. And I'm not aware that it costs any more. I would say maybe in education, maybe the time to educate yourself or to take a course or whatever, potentially, but I think that's not insurmountable.
Thanks, Katie. We are heading time, and we've got a couple of last minute questions, but there's a great question, you know, that really ties a lot of this together from Monique that I'd like to, you know, brief everyone, if you could give a brief answer, and there'll be one more after that. But Monique, are you on the line? Have we got Monique?
I'm here. Hello.
Monique's here. Hi, Monique. You've got a great question, and everyone is going to give it a little bell, and it'll be, you know, really nice to use this and the last question to wind us up out of this great session.
It's it's quite a big, complex one to answer, but there's a few questions involved. But it's basically how to link in regenerative farming and home style practice with urban agriculture, gardening, to the bigger psychological questions happening in society at the moment. So my questions were, where do you see home gardeners and urban farmers helping people reconnect to nature around them? Can you see these people help change the psychology of people's fear and panic response? Yeah, it's sort of a complex question to ask, but I think that what's going on at the moment is we're separated physically from our land, and yeah, do you think this will take the getting back to simple methods? Does it still start from the bottom up? But obviously there's a big power struggle in larger politics, and I think that it comes back to the economy all the time, and the power of men over women, and social power. But it's basically we're disconnected from nature, and how do we reconnect? I think that's what's happening at the moment.
Em, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I think I would add, how do home gardeners and farmers and Indigenous peoples of each area of this beautiful lands, how do we reconnect people to nature? And I just want to acknowledge, like, we don't have an Indigenous person that I know of that's on this panel that would be an amazing person to answer that. Like, the people who, you know, get this and have felt this disconnection for so long, and it's been ripped apart from them, are the Indigenous people. So I'll tell you a little bit of what we're doing here when it comes to that, and there's obviously lots of other ways of doing it that I feel like we're doing, you know, in fun, you know, other ways. But we've connected with the Indigenous people here in the Wurundjeri people, and we're working with them on growing bush food. It's in its still very slow, small phases, but we're attempting to grow murnong and other crops, and we're keeping all of the community, this local community here, in the loop. So every time they come in, you know, it's in the centre. The patch that we're growing in is in the centre of the farm. It's in the heart of the farm, because this is why we do what we do. We're trying to reconnect people to nature. We had a big celebration, a murnong planting. We had a Wurundjeri elder give us a smoking and a ceremony. So, and we had the whole community out here, hundreds and it was probably the busiest day on the creek that I can remember. And it was amazing to see everyone out, and there was so much interest. So I think you're spot on how that's the biggest question for all of us, because I believe that's where we're, you know, how we're going to get through the next, I don't know how long, how we're going to get through this all. So that's one way of doing it. There's so many other ways, like bring ceremony in, and bring the people in that know how to do that in your country. Yeah.
Rach, do you want to answer? Do you want to add your feelings to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to education. There's so much room, there's so much knowledge out there, and there's so much room to learn. And when I think it's a really important part of living is being able to grow your own food and know where your food comes from. And I feel really lucky to work at CERES, and there's so many amazing courses and programs where you can learn how to grow your own food and connect with the land, and connect with nature. Even just walking around CERES and seeing what's growing and looking at, there's a lot of, there's community gardens here as well, where there's a lot of community members who grow their own food here. Just, I guess, going around and and having a look and trying to connect. And I know if many of you walk past, if you come to CERES, call out, ask questions. I'm so happy to talk. And I think that, yeah, there's some amazing opportunities ahead, and you, as Mads was saying, you don't need that much space to grow your own food. It's an amazing skill to have, and you can really, yeah, there's a lot to learn from it.
Katie, do you want to add something?
I think that these lovely ladies have pretty much summed it up pretty well. I think, I mean, the scientific evidence says that putting your hands in the soil has an effect on your mind, your gut. It is literally transformative, and everyone comes to it in their own way. So my whole journey was started 10 years ago when I went woofing, and I had come to it sort of just as a way to hang around in Canada. And when I put my hands in the soil, I had an epiphany, and my life changed entirely. So it's possible that is going to happen for some people as a result of COVID, because they want to be more connected, because they're stressed, because they're depressed. And I think the thing to consider as well is just take baby steps. If you're just get outside, continue to get outside. It would be my advice.
Yeah. And Madelaine, how, what's your experience of, people reaching out to you and helping connect them to what you do?
Well, I agree with everything that's just been said, but we've had some people who've come here who have never touched the soil or have never eaten something organic, and just having dinner with us, living with our lives for 3 or 4 weeks or even a month or two, while they woof and help us and work with us. They've changed their lives dramatically, and that's so funny to watch years later, sharing their new careers on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But yeah, start small. Even if veggies seem too hard, grow a pot of flowers. Pansies are easy, and they're fun and they're cute, and bees enjoy them. What else? Yeah, if you really don't know what you're in for, go to a farmer's market, find someone you like, say hi, and then ask if you can volunteer, half a day a week, 2 hours a week, a whole day. Take 2 weeks off work and go for 2 weeks, and learn those skills from those people that you think are cool or you admire, or are growing the kind of produce that you want to grow. And yeah, your help will be great for them, and you'll get knowledge you'll cherish forever. And even being a farmer myself and living with farming parents, I've done lots of woofing myself, and those times spending on other farms, I've learnt so much stuff that I can't even explain what it is, but it's changed the way I work, or the things I do here, the hygiene practices I practice, or the way I even, I was taught how to sweep a broom properly once when I was woofing, and that changed my life, which was funny. So just, take a baby step.
Great answers. Ray is our last questioner, and she's got a question that can round it out, and then we'll have to say our goodbyes. We're already 12 minutes over. We could probably talk for another 2 hours. Ray, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hey, I'm here with my partner Joel, and we were wondering kind of a two-part question.
Yeah.
Number one, do you kind of expect the kind of increased trend towards local food, people kind of being interested in buying more local, to continue past this sort of quarantine pandemic life that's kind of popped up from, just the different circumstances that have arisen? And if so, are you changing your practices of how you do things sort of in light of thinking about whether this could happen again? Like, are you going to shift the way you do things and how you deliver your services?
I can answer that one. We'll start.
Yeah.
I think this whole virus thing has really shown me and my family, and maybe many other people out there, that the food system we have at the moment relies way too much on imported in food ingredients. and that has to change. So I would like it to go right down to, you know, just council or communities supply all the food to the people that live in those areas and those regions. I know that's not impossible, but I think we should, try to be more self-sufficient in states or maybe just Australia-wide. And I think that needs to be done by everyone buying as locally as they can. So putting their money where their mouth is. So every time you eat something which is supporting someone who's doing something in your community. My little bit.
I'll say something. I think that it's interesting. Before I was at Honey Lane, I was on the Mornington Peninsula, and I was working at a few markets in Melbourne, one of them being Alphington Farmers Market, which I think I started about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years now. And we went from having like 50 customers a day to, when I left, which was about a year ago, to having over 200. So and that was way before the pandemic. So there's obviously a huge increase in people wanting to know where their food comes from and understanding. And I think there's this whole idea like about knowing your farmer, like, you know, where you get your haircut, and you know where, like, I guess, like what brands you buy your shoes from or your clothes from. But there's been not such a story about, like, why don't people want to know where their food comes from? Like, you're putting it into your body, and I kind of feel like that should be up there with knowing how you live your life and like making those decisions. So I definitely think that coming out of this, hopefully there will be a growing want and desire to know where your food comes from and know who grows your food, and hoping that people want to continue engaging with that.
Ray, we're just currently, and I'm sure everyone, all little enterprises and businesses are doing their budgets at the moment. What do we write down? I don't know. It's really hard to predict. We're heading into a recession. We are in a recession. So my big question is, really, you know, will people be able to purchase organic? Like, will they literally feel like they can hand over that cash? You know, we're selling at a premium price. So I'm currently thinking about, do we put in a concession price on veggies? Do we have, you know, locals here that pay a little bit extra for those people that are struggling? So I don't know. I can see worry in people's eyes when I'm in the market. Just, you know, people are just really shaken up. What I can see increasing is people's need to be outside and people's need to be in nature. So that's definitely going to keep going. But when it comes to sort of our veggie boxes, there's been a real steep increase, and now it's we're on a steep decline now. It's somehow like kind of leveling out on the farm gate at the moment. But yeah, we're going to have to see, and we'll have to just, you know, be prepared for, you know, as much as we can do to diversify what we give and provide to the community. There was one other thing I wanted to say. There's the councils at the moment. There is an increase in interest in people councils understanding that people need parks, they need green space, they need local food. So I've been in people's ears in councils, and you can too, to ask for agricultural land in your space. They're ready. There's money there for parks, and there's no reason why that can't be a public park like we've got right here that so many people engage in. Let's keep having these conversations and connecting, because we're not sure what's going to happen, really. Yeah.
Katie, where do you see this going?
Look, I think the thing is you vote with your dollar when you buy your veggies or your bacon or whatever. But you also can vote with your dollar by joining an organisation or finding someone like M, or, you know, becoming a CERES member, becoming an AFSA member, because the thing is, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can put your support and your money behind, and it's super, super cheap to add, you know, to pay membership for a year to an organisation doing amazing things. I mean, you think of, if you support a pet rescue organisation, you're not running around the street trying to get all the dogs off the road. You're giving money to an organisation that has the resources and the logistics to do that. So also consider, finding out who's doing what in your area, what concerns you, and who you can join in solidarity to do that. I think that's the only way, in terms of another pandemic or another, you know, these things that we keep seeing happening. People like CERES, people like AFSA, the people within those organisations, we're advocating for smaller and more of those things, more and more and more and more. And the more we have, the stronger we are together.
Thanks, everyone. We have time, you know, for one last wind up. If you want to make a final comment, all of you, before Lorna's going to share a slide for an upcoming permaculture event. Thank you all. CERES is all about helping people fall in love with the earth, and all of you in your own way do that and help many people come to that, because it's through many avenues that we are going to find our way back to loving the earth. If everyone would like to make a short closing comment or have something to share, we'll go out on that and let Lorna share a permaculture event coming up.
Okay, final comment, go to your question time in councils. Be in their ear. They're ready. I'm just going to say it again. I'm in a group that is preparing a business plan to create opportunities for new farmers, okay? And to have that opportunity that I had, which is amazing, to create their own farming enterprise. It'll be a similar setup as a farming incubator, but for a longer period, for like 3 years. It's going to be along the Mary Creek, hopefully. So if you're interested in that, how about just email me, joesmarketgarden@ceres.org.au. If you're just interested in knowing more about it, or if you want to be a part of that group. Otherwise, talk to your councils. Question time is an amazing time to get this out there.
Thanks, Em.
Anyone else?
Madelaine, do you want to follow? Do you want to have one last comment?
I don't have anything to say except for just start. Start growing something. Start being self-sufficient.
Great. Rachel.
I concur. That is great.
Katie, have you got any last comments?
I'm just so excited to see everyone just like banging on about the stuff that we've been banging on about for so long. You know, like my best friend recently said that I was her quirkiest friend because I'm just hanging about on farms all the time. And I thought that is so, like, what does that even mean? But I guess it's true. So it's nice to see people having this renewed interest in the earth and all the things we can do with it, and not only what we can take from it, but what we can give back to it. It's just so exciting, and I hope that I really hope that this momentum continues. So get inspired, do whatever you can to be involved in your local area, and yeah, get amongst it.
Thanks. Awesome.
Thanks so much, everyone. I also want to say thank you to Chris Ennis for your time and your fantastic panel moderation. So thank you, Chris Ennis from Fair Food. You've been fantastic. And thank you all the panelists. What a rich set of brains in this Brains Trust and knowledge. And thank you to all the community input as well. I'm just going to round out now and just do a spruik of courses coming up that supports learning in these areas. I'm the Learning Innovation Director at CERES, so I just thought I'd connect to what's coming up next. So thank you, Chris, you're a legend. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Madelaine. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Emily, for your diverse experience that you brought to today. And without So if you're interested in learning at CERES, please check out courses coming up, Understanding Soils, Intro to Horticulture. We've got our PDC coming up, Plants and Permaculture, Environmental Education's coming up. Complete Urban Farmer is a great starting course for budding urban farmers, organic vegetable gardening, and also a great new course, landscape restoration and indigenous ecology, really learning from what people have done before. Thank you so much for attending. A recording will be sent to you after today. Come learn to love the earth with us. Thank you, everyone.